Hi everyone, this is AutoML training committee meeting on 21st of February. Just a reminder, this meeting is governed by the Kubeflow Code of Conduct. Welcome everyone. So I think we can start this call with introduction. So do you have anyone in the community who just want to introduce himself?
Hi everyone. My name is Abhishek and I'm new to the Kubeflow community. I was a past outreach intern as well, where I worked on kernel CI/KC IDB project, and implemented a new feature for artifact mirroring over there. And I'm kind of interested in AI and ML projects. So I was um, looking at the CNCF landscape about what are some of the projects that are inclined towards the AI. So I got to know about the Kubeflow from there, and also looking forward and interested in participation in the GSOC as well. So yeah, looking forward to know more about the project ideas.
Nice to meet you, Abhishek. Thank you for joining. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions about the onboarding and any questions about Kubeflow. We try to improve documentation, especially for the new users recently. And we definitely need some help there to make people more familiar with the project. Thank you.
Got it. Thanks.
Anyone else? All right, so I think then we can get started. So I think like we have few things in the agenda that we might want to discuss today. So I think first of all about like the meeting time. So we have this kind of like pool where we ask people for the new meeting time. I think the new meeting time will be 2 p.m. UTC, and I will like report to the Qflow Discuss Google group and also change the meeting time on the calendar because I guess that also will cover the Asia Pacific time zone plus Europe plus Eastern time zone, which most folks are working on right now. So basically, the alternative time uh, for other people also will be really easy for them to join. And I think I will try to change the calendar for next meeting, which will happening in 2 weeks. So I hope we will see more attendance there on the opposite calls as well. Um, yeah, so I think first of all, let me maybe start with the GSOC proposals, and I guess like soon will be announcement from the GSOC that Qflow got accepted, which is very good news for us as a project moving forward. And we actually already participating in GSOC back in 2020, if I remember correctly, right, Jono? Um, it was like 2020, 2019.
Uh,
Um,
like uh, the start of the Kubeflow?
yeah, when we participating in Google Summer of Code, right? Last
Yeah,
time.
that was 2019, I guess.
Oh yeah, maybe 2019. Yeah, so I think this is not new for us as a project, but we definitely like kind of like evolved a lot by the from that time, and we have like few proposals right now from the training and AutoML side, and maybe I can quickly walk you through each of them that we have. Just a second. Yes, so let me just maybe quickly share my screen. So this is the main page in the qflow.org where we try to identify the project that students can work on. So there are a few of them from the notebook side of things, also for basically from the security perspective to make Qflow rootless. This is for triaging issues, also for the manifest and Qflow working group, the Qflow notebooks working group. So from the training and AutoML side, so just to keep everyone aware of like not familiar, like we currently in Qflow has two working groups. So the first one called training, which maintains training operator to run distributed training on top of Kubernetes. And also like we have some simple API to do fine tuning, which like Jonas team are working on. And we try to like, and training working group right now maintains the training operator component. And also we have the AutoML working group, which dedicated to do some automated machine learning algorithms and tasks like neural architecture search or hyperparameter tuning or feature engineering in the future. And by that, we have a project called Katib. And Katib was the project dedicated to do some sort of the Kubernetes native hyperparameter tuning optimization or we try to use it also for architecture search type of algorithms. So a couple of proposals we have in these two Kubeflow projects. So the first one called like implementing LLM API tuning APIs. And the main idea is here, I think, John, you already posted in the Slack channel, but we did some effort in training operator Python SDK to give user like ability to fine tune their large language models, using the simple Python APIs and training operator capabilities. So which means like you can use our Python SDK and training operator controller together to just define what kind of model you want to use, what kind of data set you want to use to fine tune this model, and then define the trainer arguments. So if you're familiar with Hugging Face and transformers, there is a possibility to use like the trainer and Hugging Face transformers to fine tune your model. So we give you like a quick kind of like access, quick like ability for you to fine tune a model, just providing the simple APIs. And I think Jonah will speak more about it, like once we actually discuss these things. But what we want to do, we also like want to continue this story around LLM in Kati project as well. And we want to have Python SDK, Python API, which gives you an ability to actually tune your hyperparameters for transformer-based models. And also we can like utilize the PyTorch distributed underneath, but Kati will be just responsible to fine-tune to optimize your hyperparameters. And we definitely need to discuss this more about like the proposal. So we need to submit the proposal about the API design structure. We need to also like understand how this integration will look like, because today we kind of like support distributed PyTorch within Katib. Basically, you can wrap the PyTorch job inside Katib trial, which allows us to actually do the parameter optimization on distributed training. And we just need to kind of like wrap it inside the Python SDK. Yeah, this is just like a rough idea, but John, do you want to add something there? Like, or it's we can speak more
Uh,
about details. Yeah.
Right, like happy to answer if you have questions more on the newer training APIs or the upcoming tuning API proposal. Happy to answer that if you have specific questions.
Yeah, so I think like to understand this task more, I would suggest you to take a look in the KTIP SDK and how it looks like today. So we're planning to add like more architectures in our Kubeflow.org, and let me maybe quickly show you. So today in Kubeflow.org, if you go to KTIP, you have like this overview page, which just explain what is KTIP, what is the main features, but we're planning to add like more kind of architecture diagrams to explain, we have the experiment controller, trial controller suggestion, how it actually looks like. And also I would suggest to take a look at the KTIP documentation if you're interested, and also for, like SDK structure. So this is the KTIP SDK. It has some APIs, the Python APIs, which people use to actually create this kind of like KTIP experiments. And this work will require to do some changes in SDK, and some work that we've done in a training operator also will apply, because we will reuse some functionality to download dataset, to download model, to define the trainer, and do other things. Yeah, so maybe like if you're interested, just let me know, and we can definitely have a follow-up session, and so we can discuss more details, like how we can work on this feature. So this is the most, I think, one of the most complicated thing that we kind of planning for GSOC. Other things is more kind of easier to do, but this is like, I think will be crucial for maybe next releases of Kubeflow in 1.10 or moving forward. So similar to this, also have we also want to support JAX in training operator. So today training operator supports only PyTorch, TensorFlow, MXNet, which will be deprecated because MXNet was archived. But we support like XGBoost, TensorFlow, PyTorch, MPI, and Pedal. But given that JAX is well popular these days, we also want to give a user a quick ability to train models on JAX on Kubernetes using training operator. So this will require for you to update the controller, create a new custom CRD resource called JAX jobs, and all of the orchestration on top to support this JAX within Kubeflow in general. Go ahead, Ricardo. Yeah.
Andrew, I see this project has a length of 350 hours. Just wondering if this a feature you would like to work into multiple releases, or if it is still targeted to one line release.
No, I don't think we will target it in one end release. I mean, I think for GSOC, even like, if we get some sort of the MVP, like, even before the production ready release, even if I have something, that would be sufficient for us to move forward, right? Because the scope is big, I agree that it definitely won't go to 1.9 because the GSOC only will start in May, right? And then it probably like, so during the summer, we will work on these features. And maybe in 1.10, we can include this kind of features, some of them, right? But it really depends like on how, like, how much time we can allocate and how many like volunteers we're gonna get on this type of tasks. Does that answer your question, Ricardo?
Yeah, sure. And I agree with you.
Okay.
With such a big scope to tackle, I don't believe we should focus on a specific release. I was just curious if there are plans for a specific release, but you just answered my question.
All right. Yeah, go ahead, Abhishek.
Sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to know, like, are there any resources that I can look up for to better understand the issue for
Yes.
the LLM part and for the chats one too?
Yes. So I would suggest you understanding like what is KDIP first, and I would suggest you to go through this documentation here. And let me maybe post it somewhere. So KTIP folks. So generally, just understand like how KTIP works and what it is. So then when you just try to run few of the examples, and I would suggest you, if you're familiar with notebooks, you can go to KTIP GitHub page, and here we have some SDK. So basically, in Kubernetes, we live like in the world of YAMLs, but we kind of create this kind of like Python SDK abstractions on top of YAMLs to simplify job submission for data scientists. And right now we try to be focused on Python SDK to submit this kind of, custom resources. And I would suggest you try to run some of these examples like this one, which actually explain you how SDK works and how it allows you to create the KTIP experiments. And after that, so let me maybe share it here as well. So KTIP SDK examples. And then you probably need to understand like the effort that we've done around fine-tuning API within training operator. And that is what like Jonah was working on, and Dipankar as well from his team. So Jonah, do you know how like we can explain what we've done for training operator at least, so folks can understand?
Sure.
Mhm.
Yes. So okay. So talking about the new train AP, can you actually point to the proposal that I can post it? I think that will be really helpful. Yeah. So it was a long need in the training community to have APIs which are data scientist friendly, which is fully isolated from the infrastructure. So our earlier SDK APIs, if you have seen, in order to start a training job, like you still need to figure out many of the Kubernetes constructs inside the API. So what we have tried on the proposal is actually about to have a very high level train API where the users can directly use all the training constructs which are purely in the data science domain, right? So what in the very initial the PRs which we have created, you can use Hugging Face models for training or pre-training or fine-tuning with a data set that can be either in Hugging Face or it can be in S3, right? And these are highly modular in the sense that you can actually bring any model tomorrow, which can be in a different model repository where you have to actually add that support, how to fetch models from a specific model registry. And a data set can be again from a configured data set provider. So these are extendable interfaces where you can provide code for supporting how to fetch data sets or models from the corresponding providers. So the API, if you see it, they just talk about the training side arguments, like how many GPUs you want to use, how many GPUs per node, and other details which are pertaining to the training process. And rest all the Kubernetes level fields are entirely hidden, which will be automatically populated. So underneath, it is using PyTorch job, for example, in case of Hugging Face. And we would like to bring other frameworks as well, something like DeepSpeed and other things in the future.
Yeah, and just Carlos, just 1 second. Let me maybe quickly show to you, Abhishek, so you can come and understand it better. So in this particular example, since I said before that like in Kubernetes, we always have custom resources and the PyTorch. So this is like our custom resource to run PyTorch jobs on top of Kubernetes, right? Because you need to kind of like have multiple workers. You need to define like how many like workers you want to basically have, like one kind of template spec. So just to kind of hide the complexity from the data scientists, we just try to give them just a simple Python API, as Jono said, like client.train, where they define like what model they want to use, what dataset provider they want to use, and what training parameters they want to use to fine tune their model. It's kind of like abstractions on top of these YAML files and all these like Docker images and other things. Then data scientists just don't need to worry about. Go ahead, Carlos.
Yeah, this is great, guys. So a couple of questions. So number one, how I deal with additional dependencies, right? So what if my like Python code needs something that is not part of the base image? Do you guys have a mechanism to inject dependencies on the fly through the SDK?
Yeah. So what we try to do initially, and I'm not sure if it is part of train API, but let me show you quickly. But basically we have this parameter called similar to KFP, packages to install, which basically injects like the packages during the runtime when you start your image, before you run your training code. I think the question is like, John, how we can implement this to train API. It's open because we kind of like pre-build the trainer image beforehand, right? Because like, yeah, because like the train API has 3 components, like the model provider, dataset provider, and the trainer. Like models, yeah.
So to answer the question by Carlos, so here in the train API, we are trying to avoid that exact same problem, right? Like what you said, because from a data scientist perspective, it is very, very difficult to figure out all the dependencies, etc., and create an image, etc. So that our idea was to take that out entirely from the API. But if you need control over what packages to be installed, etc., then you have 2 ways, right? Either you can build image separately in a different workflow and then use in the train API, or like you can use there's a create job API which is provided in training in the training operator, where you have much more like I won't say it's too low level, but still you have much more better ways to configure these things, because there are more parameters which are exposed. The one that Andre was showing like in the previous page. So you could specify what training function you have to use, the packages to be installed, and all other things in that.
Okay, this makes sense. Maybe just a quick comment, right? Yeah, because I think like from our side, one thing that you're trying to completely abstract from the users, even the notion like my image, right? So which is all good, I think, when you go to the SDK, as long as you don't need to do anything like I need an extra dependency, right? And that you start to expose like more like a Kubernetes level, right?
Exactly.
Right. I think there's a sweet spot, which makes sense to me. I do have a follow-up question, if I may. So for Hugging Face, right? So one of the things that we're looking very closely now, it's these new, it's not so new, TRL and SFT libraries for fine-tuning. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them. Can you comment on the fine-tuning API SDK you guys put together? and some of these new libraries, right? Is this complementary, orthogonal? Can I use TRL through the SDK? Is anyone in the community looking to this, or just general status there?
Yeah, so we had a look at that. I think right now we started early, and then we tried to use their trainer itself, which actually exposed many of these things in a better way. But the TRL and other ones are helping users to even abstract in a much better way. So
Right.
maybe like at some point we will actually provide images there itself, so that like that can be used. So the one good thing that we have seen is from a user perspective, they really don't need to understand how that is implemented, right? So we will try to follow that. So from a user, it will still remain the same, but we can change the image or something like in the future, in the very near future, if that really helps from a user perspective.
Yeah, because it's very composable. This is like important thing. Like trainer could be like wherever you define it, and the model provider and dataset provider, right? Your preprocessing and other things, right? Because like, see, we can like define tomorrow the trainer for like Megatron, right? Or anything else, right? And that will be just supported if, you know, you can set the appropriate, you know, number of workers and like, you know, this kind of CRD for it to spin up like the instances. But like the libraries that we use for training could be wherever like you want to use, right? As long as you can build an image for trainer by itself.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. We do have some ideas in that space. I'm sorry, just to jump in. Trying to just capture, formalize. I'll reach out to you guys once we have some proposal on the table. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be really nice. That would be great. And this is like initial, you know, we just want to think about experience and how this API actually looks from the user side. Yeah, Alex, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, hey guys, and it's been a while since I've introduced myself here. I work with Carlos and Ricardo. We are like really interested in and excited about like the user experience that this would provide. So like would be interested in participating in building this. I'm curious, maybe Jonu, if you've thought about like how we will authenticate and authorize users with this API and like the multi-tenancy angle of that. That ends up being like a big downstream requirement for us. Maybe that's a rabbit hole for this, but Jonu, like, could I ping you on Slack and get your take there?
Sure. So the auth and authorization part right now, that's outside the scope of the training operator, right? Because that actually happens with the other Kubeflow components. So when you are deploying that within Kubeflow, there are other components which ensures that the users which have the right access can access our training jobs and also, right? So it is controlled via other apps, for example. But here we are assuming that at least in the training operator, someone who can actually deploy jobs, it can be even a namespace scoped, or it can be a cluster scoped. So someone who has access to a particular namespace, they can trigger a training job in that particular namespace if he's just restricted to that, right? Where the training operator can be in the system namespace, for example, right? And the auth is something which we haven't considered in this repository specifically.
So probably like the API would end up kind of passing through to the underlying training operator, which would then handle the RBAC basically. Well, the training operator would integrate with the other parts of the Kubeflow stack that do RBAC. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So in the Kubeflow side, RBAC is handled at multiple respects. One, there are Istio level, which is doing all the network side RBAC, and also there are Kubernetes level RBAC, which is configured per namespace, where users who are assigned a namespace can access resources which are there in that particular specific namespace. They cannot access any other resource which is in other namespace. So it's something like one namespace per user concept in Kubeflow.
Yeah. Yeah, like we kind of like fully rely on Kubernetes RBAC for, you know, like job submission. I think like maybe, John, we need to think about like storage level RBAC and like kind of access to different storages. I'm not sure how like Ksurf actually solve this problem. Like, they have any kind of mechanism to what kind of data you can access, or you just pass it like secrets and that's it? But I think we haven't thought much about it, right?
Right. Like in this repository, I feel that like that is outside the scope, right? Like because we are trying to deal with operations either within a user namespace or multiple namespaces if like at a cluster scope if he has access to the entire cluster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think it's a good point, Alex, in any way. So I think we need to also think about additional, if we need additional kind of like boundaries about the accessing the data. But yeah, that makes sense. All right, let me quickly go through the other items because we also need to discuss the release, and I know Stefano will join soon in our meeting. So so other things about kind of like more like it's actually easier task, maybe not easier, but it's faster to make, I think, and also like very important for us to make a stable release. So our plan for Katib to make a stable release this year, like V1 version of APIs, and we need to kind of like outline several tasks to make this possible. And we will like present in the KubeCon regarding our plan for this tuning system to make it stable, so more people can use the stable APIs in production. And we believe that hyperparameter tuning almost stable. There are a few things we need to do, like specific like push-based metrics, to support kind of like ability to push metrics from your training code directly to KTBDB, and this definitely would be possible. Other things about various parameter distribution like lock uniform. So if you're familiar with different like hyperparameter tuning system like HyperOpt or Optuna, most of them are only very tuned, right? They supporting like some sort of the different kind of parameter distributions. We don't support this today. We support only like integers and floats like variables on the without any additional distributions, like lock uniform, right? So almost all of the distributions right now that are just uniform, right? And we need to support this in the KTP API as well. Also, there is some work about updating the docs, which is like very important. Instead of like me showing you the doc strings directly in the Python SDK in the source code, we want to have a page where a user just can read the documentation around our Python SDKs for training operator and for Katib. And we definitely need someone to work on this. Yeah, and this is like the items that we identify right now. So five different feature requests that we can work on. All right. So if we have any questions for any other tasks? Yeah. So Abhishek, you're asking about the issue about for the documentation. Are you asking about like SDK documentation or just?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I need to do, I need to transfer all of these items to the issues, GitHub issues, and I might need to let me make a note. I probably need to do it relatively soon. So I will create an issue, and we will like try to, we'll actually ask for volunteers and for people who want to contribute and assign to them, and then we can start working on this as well. Let's choose. Also, I think like I just want to quickly mention that recently we've updated some of the documentation about training operators, and we kind of like, so as part of the Kubeflow 1.8 release, we try to significantly improve documentation side. For example, like in training operator, we added a new distributed kind of like architecture of how distributed training works, and we kind of like giving two examples for all reduced type of training and also parameter server types of training, so people can actually understand better what is actually a responsibility of training operator, right? Like what kind of role it plays in overall ML umbrella, right? And here it actually explains you how we actually starting these workers and what is the responsibility of operator. And one example of the PyTorch, and one of the example of like parameter servers with TensorFlow, which gives like an idea of how this component works. Yeah, go ahead, XJ.
Yeah, Yeah, this looks great. Actually, we were having a discussion in release team, like since this is related to release one dot upcoming Kubeflow release, right? So what should we follow here? Like, so we have documentation leads in release team. Uh, they like, I think they should also review this. What do you suggest here?
Yeah, I think
Like,
yeah.
of working group, or like they just review it or they work on it.
Yeah, so I asked him to review the PRs that we created. Also, we have a tracking issue. Let me make a note here. So it's for 1.8 release. Improved, yeah, docs. Just a second. I think I have it. So, yeah, improved docs for training operator 1.8. So we kind of like identify a few items. And I think Ajay, if some of, documentation doc leads can help us to work on something on this. I think this is already done, but we need to like have a page about why using training operators and what it is exactly, right? What is the benefits of using training operator? So we need someone who can like help us to work on these items before 1.9 release of Kubeflow.
So maybe we can create some issues for that and ask. I can ask for help in release team with documentation leads.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be nice. So if you can translate this to documentation, like to doc leads and who can volunteer to help on this, that would be great. And we have the same issue for Katip, right? So I definitely can help with architecture, but we still need to find some volunteers to help on on the user stories. I know Andrea is starting working on this, but like on user stories, on why actually using Katip, what is the importance in overall like ML umbrella, right? And um, if you know anyone who I can assign this issue, just let me know.
Sure.
Yeah, and we can work together.
I'll check with release team and then we can. Can you please link those issues there so
Yeah.
that I.
All right. Okay, any other questions for I know we have some questions from Stefan about the LM APIs, but any other questions or comments?
Not related to this. I just wanted to check, are we on track? I just wanted to check progress related to 1.9 Kubeflow release, like training operator 1.8 and Cat 1.7.
Yeah, let's see where we are. So yeah, so I think like we're on track, I believe. Like we kind of like did some changes to to some things I think in training operator. Like for example, like I was working on the docs, and we also like I think Jono, you kind of identify items that we need to do for this like to train API, right? For the release. I guess like we still need to find like people who can like help us to working on remaining issues. I know that from the training side there are a couple of them. Like this is easy one, but supporting Kubernetes version, maybe do the validation webhooks, or like other things that we have here. So I guess like we just want to ask if anyone can help us to working on these items. Let us know. We can definitely assign issues for this. But I think the most effort from training operator side will be like this fine-tuning API. And for Katip, I hope we can finalize the API design with Katip 1.0, which I hope will be before the KubeCon, and we need to work on this definitely.
Sure. I'll check with release team as well, like if we can get some help related to training operator. Do we need help in Katib as well?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like let's see. So we identify like few issues here, right? Like supporting new Kubernetes version, design LLM APIs. So I think what would be really important if we can if we find like the, like the folks who will be working on this new LLM APIs, we can start working on the design even before the release. And this could be like one of the targeting things that we can do before 1.9. Yeah, but other things, like we definitely need help, like unit testing, right? Or, generating documentations, right? Yeah. So if you, Ajay, if you know anyone who can help us and who can work on this, just comment on this issue. We can assign the appropriate tasks to them. That sound good?
Sure, sounds good.
Yeah, thank you, Ronald, so much. So if you want to like help on a specific issue, let me know. Maybe it's like related to documentation or anything else. So I can assign the issue to you. All right, so let me post it here. So since like Stefano, I think you're here, you're joining, right? So Jonah, like Stefano like wants to ask some questions to, oh yeah, I think Jonah needs to draw, but I think Stefano, maybe we can discuss it about it right now, about the LLM APIs, right? So
yeah, I see you copied my questions over there. So yeah, whatever comments, opinions you have on those, that would be great.
yeah, so I think let me maybe quickly go through them. So I think about the scope, right? So the first question about like the scope of this feature. I think initially we just want to support 2 dataset providers, 1 model provider and 1 trainer. Like, I don't know if it's actually represented to you, but like Stefano, how you think we should explain the scope of what we do initially?
So, well, I think we would, okay. We would definitely need to document it somewhere in terms of like having, an exec summary, 5 or 6 sentences that say what this is. Like, because currently I don't have that high level view. It's a little bit hard for me to describe this in words. I know we have that in let's call it a technical spec that shows the usage of these APIs, but yeah, having that high level, an architecture diagram coupled with a short executive summary, that would be great. And if after that we also have a user story, could be an example, could be a tutorial or something, but a use case that demonstrates why these APIs are useful. Why should I even care? Or why should I even care in the context of Kubeflow? Like, and that goes probably to the last bullet, which I turned it probably, I thought it at the end, but we're talking about this as LLM APIs, but what is this really about? Like, how should we call this feature? I'm not sure LLM API is descriptive enough, or if it's even right.
I agree. It's a great point. I think what we need a dedicated page on the kubeflow.org, which says fine tuning in training operator. And like, most of the people who do ML training, they know what is fine tuning if like they're following like the recent, trend around training the models, right?
Yeah.
And then just, we're probably not going to, like in the documentation, maybe have more concrete, description what it is from the architecture standpoint, like how we share, like model, where we download the model, like how model is being distributed across the multiple workers, and then like how we train it. Yeah, in terms of the feature name, I need to like ask it to Jonah, but I agree it's probably LLM. So why we call it LLM? Because we kind of like focusing on transformers right now mostly. And transformers is like one of the, like it's like the way how right now LLM is being trained.
But in what sense are you focusing on transformers?
So transformers is used in our trainer, right? Trainer is like the script which executes the training based on the model and provide, right? Does make sense? So
Almost.
yeah, so just a high level, right? So fine-tuning is the process when you basically take a model,
Yes.
and try to retrain it on a new given data set with
Yes.
like almost without changing the model architecture, and we're saving the weights. So basically you're kind of like locking the weights of the model, like, and then you try to retrain it on a new data set. So in recent kind of research, it's been proven that this actually give quite good results for many ML use cases, rather than just, training model from scratch. And it's been proven for a lot of NLP use cases, also for image classification problems, right? And right now, because people just don't want to train model from scratch, they just want to take the existing model like BERT or like Llama, right? Or wherever you have an industry, right? And then like, provide a data set and do additional training on top of data set to actually solve their business use case. So what we've done from our side, right? Kubeflow provides an infrastructure for you to run distributed training on PyTorch and Kubernetes, right? So it doesn't really like replacing the ML libraries. It just gives the infrastructure to run PyTorch and Kubernetes. So today, yes, it is possible to do this type of tasks in existing kind of like, basically it is possible to do it today without any changes. But like data scientists, to do fine-tuning in Kubeflow today, they have to build an image, they have to define the spec, the YAML file, they have to like know how to share the distributed data set across the workers, and do other things, right? So what we try to do, we try to abstract it from the user by providing the simple Python API. But when user run this API behind the scenes, we kind of like wrapping this inside the YAML to submit this as the PyTorch job task. And also we have like this kind of like the model, like the init container to do the model fetching and dataset fetching. And then we distribute it across multiple workers using the PVC, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know what? We should take the transcription of what you just said the last 2 minutes and just have it as an exact summary. I mean, this is exactly what I was looking for. It was perfect. I mean, yes, this kind of explanation, where is this coming from? Why is for the Kubeflow context? It was perfect. High level, short and sweet. Let's do something like that. We can we can review, iterate a little bit, and reward and make it very easy to understand. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about.
Yes, and it is hard to understand because Kubeflow is just the infrastructure layer between like ML ecosystem and the cloud native ecosystem, right? So there is definitely possible to use PyTorch without Kubeflow, right? Using the rest like TorchX, right? Or other things. But because like we kind of like giving this infrastructure, we definitely can like, improve the user experience around how this infrastructure is being used, right? And that was what we're trying to be focusing on the last like a year, right? We're starting with this kind of, simple SDK. Like why Key was like, very popular because it's very easy for data scientists to play with, right? Rather than using the Argo workflow natively, right? In Kubernetes, right? Because you can like using the KFP cell to wrap your function as the task and then schedule it on the cluster, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, I get all the infrastructure arguments, and it's great that also on the fine tuning and the Carib side, we're sort of catching up with the more easy to use and high level APIs. I love the direction. So yeah, maybe let's try and put these thoughts into words as well.
Yeah.
So about naming, do you think that transformer fine-tuning APIs would be a better title for this feature?
Yeah, we can even call it like fine-tuning for LLM, right? Or like LLM because mostly I think transformers mostly used for LLMs. I might be wrong, but I don't know if
I'm not that deep into transformers. I'm not sure how else they're used. But so I think just so that I have a better understanding here, I think you were saying that we already had a trainer component for transformers, and you're basically building these APIs on top of that.
We don't have it before. So Jono's team and we kind of like implemented this by ourselves. So we
Okay.
created the script for the user. So user doesn't even need to worry about the training by itself. User just specify the parameters. So and these parameters has been propagated all the way to Hugging Face trainer, because basically Hugging Face is like it's like a layer on top of PyTorch, right?
Yeah.
Hugging Face like simplify the PyTorch ability to do different machine learning tasks, right? And we kind of like building this on top of the Hugging Face trainer in addition. So this is more not like for data scientists who knows how to like write, how to create the model architectures, right? This is more for people who just want to quickly experiment, right? Wouldn't you maybe with some existing models and existing data sets in open source or maybe in their company, right? Yeah, so because if they if they always want to go lower level, they can use this kind of like even create job APIs, like the Python APIs, when they can like define their training script and then run it as the PyTorch job task. Like similar to if you're familiar with Ray, in Ray there is a concept around like the training function, where you can execute this training function in Ray train API. And we do quite similar, but within Kubernetes kind of, concept around how we run this function in multiple workers.
Yeah, that makes sense. So on the demo / tutorial, do you think there's a chance you guys could I mean, first, I'm not sure if there's already a script for a demo tutorial that we could eventually publish alongside these APIs. And second, I think we talked about demoing this to the community, so we get some more visibility feedback. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think we need to sync with Jonah. We definitely should give a demo, and I think we definitely should have a dedicated page on the Kubeflow, as I said, the Kubeflow like fine-tuning in Kubeflow, right? And then explain this, how we do the fine-tuning. Yeah, but let me get back to Jonah and ask about when we can present it, this example. And I think like Dipankar like should present it because he was involved mostly in the implementation.
Sure. Okay, so I'll be waiting from you. If you want to start a document and we can start jotting down some thoughts and work on the high-level messaging, and you can work more on the architecture. I can definitely help you on the more high-level presentation if you want. We can start a shared doc and then eventually move to the website. Happy to help.
Yeah, so user stories definitely will help, and we need like Stefan, I think we need like user stories eventually for Kubeflow, right? And this is like what we discussed with Andrea, right?
Yeah.
Like why using this, right? Like what is the kind of uniqueness of using this compared to other things, right? I think the question is how do we can consolidate the effort there. So Stefan, do you think like we can work on the Andreas doc maybe for user stories, or do you think it's kind of separate from this effort?
So I looked at that document. It seems like it's at very early stage still. I'm not sure where that document is going. And I mean, to me, it's not really clear what the goal of that document is. But I probably sync with Andrea next week. So hopefully we'll manage to discuss this as well. Look, my proposal would be, so since we haven't done this before, let's focus on one thing and let's do it right. So this is a new feature. It's a pretty good chance for us to experiment the user story format also in our docs or however else we want to share it with the community or with the public. And then we can fine tune it and then use the same approach and format with other components, other features, with the experience we built with this one. Instead of going full blown, let's document user stories for an entirety, all features under Carib, all features under AutoML. If we focus on just this one, I think we'll be much better targeted and laser focused on this one, do a much better job.
Yeah, And
then,
it might like help us to better explain the features on the documentation side.
yeah, exactly.
That's true. Yeah, I think it's a good point. So, I, I mean, I'm okay, Stefan, if you can start the doc, and I can definitely draft. I mean, I can work on architecture and I can submit the PR and get your feedback on this.
Okay.
For the wording, I might need your help in terms of the, why we need this, and
Yeah.
maybe John also,
I'll,
can elaborate on this.
I'll start that doc.
All right.
Maybe look, let's track this conversation separately into an issue.
Yeah.
Like fine-tuning user stories or something like that.
Yeah,
And
sure.
so others can jump in.
Yeah.
I can create that one.
So let's call it, okay, fine LLM fine-tuning, right?
Yeah.
API for LLM. Yeah, okay, create an issue. Sounds good. And let's like incorporate the effort there. I know that we have another issue for the working task that we created. So the punker created the issue. It's
what issue?
I think it's this one. Just quickly, if I share my screen. This one. So it's like more working items that we need to do before.
Okay, yeah, we can add these items. So we could have one for the demo, one for the let's add documentation and more plumbing procedural stuff here as well, so we can track everything.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay,
good, nice.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions?
Nope.
Yeah, I just want to add this issue to the meeting notes. All right, sounds good. So thanks everyone for joining then. I think next meeting will be in 2 weeks in 2 p.m. UTC, and I will change the calendar for everyone who just want to attend. And I guess see you again in 2 weeks. So thanks everyone for your time. It was great to see you all. See you soon.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.